And so as I'm recording this, one of the most important union actions in many years, maybe in my entire lifetime, is happening in Alabama, of all places. And it's happening to a company which is very much at the center of where the new economy is going to go, and that's at an Amazon warehouse. And Amazon is notoriously anti-union. I don't think a single warehouse has been unionized. And if you've heard stories or if you've listened to news reports of what it's like to work in an Amazon warehouse, it's not super great. Like, first of all, if there's COVID going around, they're going to make you continue to work, and they're probably going to make you work extra because now everybody's ordering their boxes. And so the essential workers, the most important workers in our society, are also some of the lowest paid workers. I actually made a video about that as well. And as a result, there was an extremely disproportionate amount of COVID infections and deaths associated with working at places like Amazon, while they were simultaneously getting paid less than other people. And so, like, effectively, like, the richest, most non-essential workers are able to, Skype at home while making large sums of money because that's their job. And then the reason that they're able to eat and get items and continue with the essential parts of their life is because the services for that are taken care of by the lowest paid workers within our society, who are making the richest man in the world, I think he made like $60 or $80 billion just during COVID. So he sits on his butts and makes $80 billion from workers which are among the lowest paid, doing things that are getting them killed in a way where they have hardly any rights, and it's not a fun job at all. And they're not allowed to unionize because he's not a big fan of the union movement. There's good news, and that's that we have a new president, and he's going to treat things differently. He's said, I don't have the quotes in front of me because, again, I'm in the forest. There's no internet here. But he said, like, I'm as union as it gets. I'm union from my tippy toes all the way up to the top of my head. I'm so union that, whenever I play Monopoly, I buy the Union Railroad and exchange it for Park Place. I'm so union that I'm so union that I didn't support gay marriage. I supported civil unions for the longest time, but then reluctantly supported gay marriage because, again, I'm a political opportunist. I'm so union that... Should I go on tangents like this during my videos, or is it disrespectful to people's time? He's super union. That's what he has to say about it. And so, of course, he's going to support what is some of the lowest paid workers in terrible conditions trying to unionize in opposition to the most powerful company headed by the richest, most James Bond-like supervillain. And that's, again, I'm kind of stigmatizing based on his bald head, but also based on his activities. He's making spaceships with the tens of billions of dollars that he gets from exploiting workers, and it's not a good trend. And so this new president, who, again, is the media loves more than anybody, and he's the opposite of the personification of evil, which was the Trump administration. So by definition, he's got to be like on the right side of these issues. He's going to stand up and do something about it, I'm sure. He hasn't made a single statement on the issue, and I think that speaks volumes about what the Democratic Party has become. And so why is that? Why is the most union-friendly person in the entire country, who's the head of the Democratic Party, which is supposed to be the party of workers and the party of labor, and it's been that way for decades and decades, and the unions always support the Democrats because, again, they're standing up for working people. Why is that person not even offering a mumbling word of support for what is the biggest union movement in many, many years? I think the reasons are pretty obvious, and I think you know what they are, but again, I have to make content here, so I'm going to spell them out anyways. One example for why it is, which is, I don't think super important individually, but very representative of the broader problem, is that Jay Carney, if people know who Jay Carney, who he is the, currently he's the head spokesman for Amazon. He's the head of outreach or communications for Amazon. But prior to that, he was the head spokesman or the White House press secretary for the Obama administration, and he worked closely with then Vice President Biden when he was in the Obama administration. And so what we had is the spokesman for the Obama administration going seamlessly to the biggest corporation in the world, which in theory the Obama administration is probably supposed to be kind of in tension with the biggest union-busting, anti-worker, pro-outsourcing, pro-income inequality, corporation in the world, which does a lot of bad things. We could talk about that also, and I probably will. Maybe that would be something that's in tension there, because, actually the Obama administration is the head of, is the federal government, which is the entity that regulates these type of behaviors. But again, this happens all the time. It's called a revolving door in Washington, where the soft corruption of people working for a Democratic administration or Republican administration, then going directly to a very, very high-paying job in the sectors which they were supposed to have policy influence over right before. And that's not thought of as corruption. Corruption is when Trump gets diplomats to, stay in his hotels for $10,000 a night, thereby enriches himself. That's a corruption that they'll talk about. But the soft corruption, which is infinitely more meaningful and impactful in terms of labor policy, outsourcing policy, just general policy within Washington and the consensus that develops therein, that's not commented on because that's what everybody does. And that's just one example. And so now Jay Carney is working directly with Jeff Bezos, as is presumably 100 other lower level officials, not to mention dozens and dozens of donors and kind of elite liberal intelligentsia people within the Biden circle, because that is what the Biden administration is. A quick wrinkle there. Jeff Bezos, again, when he's not building rocket ships or building unions, he actually just retired as CEO, but he's still like the head of the board of directors of Amazon. One of the reasons he retired is like, I would have focused more on my other job as the head of the Washington Post, which I think he bought the Washington Post for, I think it was $250 million, which sounds like a lot of money. But when you're worth $200 billion, that means that you can buy the Washington Post like 900 times or 800 times over with just your wealth. And the Washington Post is supposed to be the second biggest print media outlet in the entire country. So one person can buy an outlet which is pretty much the biggest in the country, and he could do it 900 times. Like, is this a problem? Is this a conflict of interest? And we all know that the Washington Post is very, very, very heavily inundated in Biden land and pro democratic policies and that type of, and so it's all interconnected, and it eventually what it leads to is what was supposed to be the Labor Party is unable to make even like the most basic milquetoast statement about what was once their primary constituency, or was supposedly their primary constituency of working people, when they're under assault from what was once the boogeyman, that being corporate interests and the wealthy elite, which actually pull the strings these days in America. So